Okay, well, good evening, everybody. Can everyone hear me up the back? Is the sound working? Okay, yeah, good. Okay, well, it's past, as Flo says, so we'll start off. First of all, I'd like to wish you all a Happy New Year on behalf of the Council. It's good to see everyone back and good to see everyone coming out despite the weather and the traffic and stuff. But let's see, I'll talk through just a few things we need to talk about, and I'll turn the lights down so we can see some of it, and I'll just do something I've forgotten to do, which is to get my little stick out. There's always one thing I just forget to do. Here we go. So, here we are. Right, so just some events coming up that we need to highlight. First of all, Stargazing Live is back on the television next week. I haven't really got much idea what it's about this year, and it is just a local program this time, so there's no local events to accompany it, unfortunately. But one thing they will be doing is talking live by video link to Tim Peake on the International Space Station. So we've seen some of the coverage of that. Next Friday, we're down at St Patrick's Academy in Dungannon again. We've been down there a few times. It's always a good evening, and we'll be doing a bit of observing, and we'll have the Star Dome down there. Hopefully also getting some observing in at that weekend if possible. And they do tell me that the weather is going to change. We may see a little bit more of the sky, but unfortunately it will be extremely cold in the next week or so. So we'll see how that goes. And our next lecture back here in 2 weeks' time, Dr. Heather Segler from Queen's will be talking about Earth-like exoplanets. We did mention this before. We had Brian from Galway Astronomy Club here a few weeks ago, and he was talking about the Galway Astronomy Festival. That's on the 29th and 30th. Most of it's on the day of the 30th, Saturday the 30th of January down in Galway. But there is also observing on the Friday night, and I'm actually going down to that one for the first time this year. In January. One other small thing before I go on to the next point. At our last talk, back in December, with Tony Drennan, past president here. Tony had some materials supporting the talk which he ran out of, and he did ask me just to mention that he's got a few other copies of that here today. There's Tony over there. Okay. And one other thing I'm going to mention before we talk about other stuff, we are lining up what we hope will be a fairly big event. Isn't that right, Terry? Yes. With ourselves and the IAS in Dublin and IFAS. It's a Saturday, all day and evening event at Dunsink Observatory, which is just outside Dublin, and actually quite an easy drive down on the motorway. I've been down there for Solarfest a few times, and it's actually this side of Dublin, so it's not even a couple of hours drive from here. More on that as soon as we get it together. Okay, Terry, do you want to? Are you teasing today?
You put a wee little light on.
Yes.
So you can say, I couldn't think of a question relating to bananas. As you know, I usually try and make the teaser related to the talk. But since it's New Year, I thought I'd try something connected with that. Various planets in the solar system all have their own length of year, and they all have their own length of rotation period. And for the sake of this particular teaser, we'll assume that Pluto is still a planet. So it's a very simple question, except you have to think. Which planet in the solar system has the greatest number of its own days, not Earth days, its own days in its own year? Sun? No. She said Jupiter, but not Jupiter. The greatest number of its own days in its own year.
I think it's Saturn.
No.
No?
It's a good question then.
Why did you twist your
Why did that? No.
Is that the answer?
Your last chance to make a guess. You have to think of how quickly the planet spins on its axis and the length of its year.
Neptune.
Not Mercury either. So, by the process of elimination, we're going to get there.
Neptune.
Come on. What?
Neptune.
Who said? Andy?
No, it wasn't me.
Oh, sorry, yes. Neptune. It has a day of approximately 16 hours, but its year is obviously very, very long. Okay? Pluto's year is even longer, but Pluto spins on its axis in 6 days and 9 hours. So, just refreshing my memory, Neptune has approximately 60,000 of its own days in its own year. So if you've been born on Neptune, you have to get 60,000 Neptunian days for one birthday. Right, well done. Choice, as usual, of Milky Way, Mars bar, or Magic Stars.
I'll take a Mars bar.
Take a Mars bar. There you go. Very much. Right, there we go.
Thank you very much, Terry.
A round of applause. Some of the great astronomy minds in the audience didn't get involved.
Okay, well, we'll move on. Just look at some things in the night sky. Well, not the night sky, but the day sky at the minute. Here is the sun. The sun does still exist, I can reassure you, but only because I've got satellite picture evidence of that. But I haven't actually seen it myself this year so far. But there is the sun, and it's actually really quite unremarkable at the moment. There's two small sunspot groups, 2476 and 2477, neither of which poses any great potential for flare activity or so on. But what is more interesting about the sun is not that view at all, but this one, and this is the coronal hole that keeps coming around, and that's looking really quite promising now. There's a lot of material by way of solar wind being ejected towards the Earth, and there have actually been a couple of auroras in the last couple of weeks or so, and there was one New Year's Eve which I was confined to quarters during that time, so wasn't going out anywhere there, coughing and spluttering and all that. But there were sightings from the north coast and stuff of a New Year's Eve aurora, and one just a few days before that as well, which Andy got a great view of there. That's from Bangor, looking up towards sort of Whitehead and the Blackhead Lighthouse there. And I didn't see that one either, actually. You could see these clouds here. Well, they were right above me. It's just the different meteorology you get with the Antrim Hills there. I was unlucky on that one, but Andy was far enough south to see over it, and that was quite good. And so keep an eye out. I'm hoping that we will get some clear skies at the right sort of time soon, and we'll get the chance to see some more of these auroras that seem to be coming around quite quickly at the end stage of solar cycle 24. The normal night sky, this is a sort of planetarium view of, as of, well, later tonight really, 9 o'clock this evening. And it's the normal winter sky. We have Orion dominating that in the southwards view. Betelgeuse Rigel giving us that great colour contrast between the red giant and the blue supergiant. And you can always use Orion very easily as a sort of a signpost in the sky. You take Orion's belt here, these three stars that are very prominent, and look downwards till you come to a very bright star. Brightest actual star in the sky, as it happens, is Sirius, and that's high enough up in January for you to see that. And you can follow it upwards to another reddish star, Aldebaran, and a bit further still to the Seven Sisters. And we've done the Seven Sisters counting game that you can do. And then follow a line up from Rigel through Betelgeuse, and it takes you up to the twins of Gemini, Castor and Pollux there. And there's some nice clusters in that part of the sky. There's Messier's 35, 36, 37, 38 from Gemini up into Auriga there, all visible in a small telescope. And they come out actually really nicely. If you just point a camera with a 50mm lens or so up that direction, you can see those clusters well. So there's lots to see in that part of the sky. But I have to tell you that the really interesting bit involves getting up early in the morning. And the sky in the morning is actually quite remarkable. First of all, we have a comet, a not quite naked eye visible comet, it has to be said, but that's now been getting higher and higher and higher in the morning sky, probably fading a little bit as it does so, to be fair, because it's moving away from the sun, which is why it gets higher. But we're now up with the point that is above Arcturus in the sky, and we'll look a bit more closely at where that is in relation to everything else. That looks quite good now. We've got a couple of pictures of that. First of all, Andy got this picture from Bangor, which is pretty good. And you can see it's got this characteristic green-coloured coma and two tails, one thin tail there and one here in a sort of V-shape comet, and looks pretty impressive there, Andy. I must say that's a pretty good picture. I have one other, and this is from John McConnell. John had a bit of an advantage in that he used a remote control telescope in New Mexico with a beautiful, pristine, clear sky there to see that. And that's, again, that was taken actually on the 3rd of January from New Mexico. And actually this here, you see there's a flare here, that's actually Arcturus. This was taken just as it went past Arcturus. And it's just out of frame, but bright enough to cause a slight flare in the telescope in the very dark sky that was taken in. So that's the comet, Catalina, worth looking out for. Its magnitude is about 6.5, so it's not quite naked eye visible. I have been told that people with clear skies have seen it in 10 by 50 binoculars as a smudge, but it does seem to come out quite nicely on the cameras. This is that part of the sky in a wide-angle planetarium view, and this is 7 o'clock in the morning, 7 o'clock tomorrow morning specifically, and we'll come to that bit in a moment. But right up here, almost overhead, we've got the plough at that time, and as usual with the plough, you follow the handle down through a curve, and you come to Arcturus, and you follow it down even further, you come down to Spica. And Spica has a companion in the sky at the moment. A red dot next to the blue dot of Spica is Mars, and above Mars we have another planet, Jupiter, and just above Jupiter is the constellation Leo, with the characteristic sort of tail and the backwards question mark as the head of the lion there. But further down here, just before sunrise, in the hour or two before sunrise, we have a nice little gathering of the Moon, Saturn and Venus, and we'll look at that a little bit more closely. This is tomorrow morning only, this particular view, that we have a very thin crescent moon here and Saturn and Venus. And we're just looking at about 3 degrees there between the moon and Venus, so that's a very small area. Venus very bright, of course. The crescent moon really quite difficult to see because it will be quite thin, and Saturn is about first magnitude or so there, so that should be visible. And Venus and Saturn are getting much closer, such that by Saturday they're this close. And how close is this? Well, this here is 9 arc minutes, or just over a quarter of the width of a full moon. So they're very close. Not quite as close as they're going to be in the year 2500 and something, when I'm told there will be such a close conjunction of Venus and Saturn that Venus will appear to have rings. But that's a long way away. This is pretty close. So if you do get a clear sky Saturday morning, that's worth getting up for. Okay? Right. I'm going to just briefly introduce, and again I've left my bit of paper in the wrong place. Here we go. Dr. David Asher, of course, is very well known to us. He's an astronomer down at Armagh Observatory and has talked to us many times in the past. So I'll just fill you in with a little bit of a biography. That David studied maths at Cambridge University in the 1980s and then went to Oxford University, so completing the set of Cambridge and Oxford. He's been to both universities. At the Department of Astrophysics, he did a DPhil there, Doctor of Philosophy, in 1988 to 92, and then went on to the University of Edinburgh to study artificial intelligence. And he's also worked with the Anglo-Australian Near-Earth Asteroid Survey at the Anglo-Australian Observatory. I think that's in New South Wales, isn't it, as I remember, in the 90s, and also in Japan at the National Astronomical Observatory there, and has visited Tokyo University's Kiso Observatory. And he's now at Armagh Observatory, where he's been since 1998, and we're very pleased to welcome to talk to us tonight Dr. David Asher.